There's an old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And this definitely applies to evolution. Evolution is defined as change over time and happens at the molecular level in the nucleic acids, DNA and RNA. They're usually small and incremental, and organisms have absolutely no control over their evolutionary destiny. Evolution in complex organisms like plants, fungi, and animals can take thousands to millions of years. In organisms that are simpler in their anatomical and physiological functions, evolution can occur much faster, but there needs to be some pressure for change. These changes result in new species with new adaptations to their environment. However, if a particular species is already highly competitive in the environment, just the way it is, then evolutionary change will most likely be slower than those species that are having to fight hard to survive. Charles Darwin and Alfred Wallace were contemporary naturalists that independently came to the same conclusion of what drives evolutionary change. Darwin and Wallace deduced that there were two main tenets of evolutionary theory: descent with modification and survival of the fittest. Let's begin with the idea of descent with modification. The first living organisms ever found on our planet existed about 3.8 billion years ago. But of course, humans were not there to witness it, so we must extrapolate based on our own research and scientific knowledge. Scientists have counted countless amounts of data to support the theory of evolution in the form of fossils and molecular data, as well as using our ability to just compare and contrast morphological, behavioral, and biogeographical characteristics of species past and present. It's within this evidence that we see that all organisms that have ever lived or ever will live on our planet are connected to one another as descendants of that very first organism. Next, let's dive deeper into survival of the fittest. Now, fitness is sometimes confusing because being the fittest doesn't always mean the strongest or the smartest or the fastest. Being the most fit as a species means being able to be the best adapted to your current environmental conditions, allowing individuals of that species to get the basics for survival, food, water, shelter, thus allowing them to live long enough to pass on their genes to the next generation. Now you'll notice I said current environmental conditions. Environments change all the time. Even though the current global climate change issues we're facing are the first time humans have directly caused environmental change, the planet has undergone all sorts of changes throughout its 4.5 billion year history. There have been ice ages and heat waves. There's been volcanoes and continental drift, times of feast and the time of famine. And just because species are a good competitor now, doesn't mean they'll always be a good competitor. As environments change, those that happen to have the best adaptations will go on to get the resources they need to survive. Those that don't will dwindle in numbers or go extinct forever. It's important to note here that species have no willful choice in whether or not they have the evolutionary advantageous adaptations that will give them the competitive edge. Natural evolution is random and is not controlled by any species or entity. So let's use an example. Everybody loves polar bears. Unless you're an Arctic ring seal, then you probably hate polar bears because they ate your baby or your mom. But us humans absolutely love polar bears because they're so cute. Polar bears have become this iconic species for global climate change. And up until recently, polar bears were the royalty of the frozen tundra because not only did their thick coat and heavy fat stores help them withstand sub-zero temperatures, they could hunt on ice, they could swim in freezing Arctic oceans, and safely transverse over slippery ice sheets and easily walk upon freshly fallen snow. However, having this ability to both physiologically and anatomically adapt to a very rough environment evolved slowly over time and made the polar bears a top competitor in this freezing environment. But now we're seeing a massive decline in polar bears as their environment is getting warmer and warmer due to global climate change. As average Arctic temperatures continue to rise, there is less and less sea ice to hunt upon, and that heavy fur coat is now a detriment to their survival, and they're becoming overheated and dying from heat exhaustion. The adaptations that once made them top competitors are now resulting in their race towards extinction. The polar bears haven't changed, but their environment has. Until next time, thank you for joining me on Exploring Environmental Biology.